From prehistoric time to today, man's progress has been marked by his ability to fashion tools and use them to his advantage. From early humans making tools from stone, man evolved and was soon trading with other men. Money evolved, and tools such as the abacus to handle complex money transactions were developed. By the end of the 19th century, machines such as the cash register began to appear. 100 years later, we have even better computer-driven machines which track stock, change prices, and automatically reorder. Meanwhile, the reinsurance industry has failed to embrace man's drive for progress. The reinsurance industry today would be as familiar to practitioners from the 1800s as it is to modern underwriters. An underwriter or broker from 1800 would settle nicely into today's business. That is, until now. For the reinsurance industry, pivot point changes everything. Soon it will be understood that the period before pivot point was as dark as the caveman period was before the abacus. Come and see for yourself if you don't believe. After a demonstration, you will understand what is possible.
French President Nicolas Sarkozy will host a European Financial Summit meeting on Saturday at the Élysée Palace in Paris. He's going to bring together leaders of 4 countries to deal with the international financial crisis. Leaders of Germany, Britain, and Italy are scheduled to attend. Others invited are the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, a top European financial official, and the Central European Bank Chief. The President of the European Commission is expected to be there as well. The goal of the meeting, says Sarkozy, is to prepare the EU members of the Group of 8 for broader talks on the financial crisis. No meeting of the full G8 has been announced. Sarkozy has been pushing for a global summit on the economic crisis, saying capitalism must be restructured to better adapt to a new era. Well, there may be no crisis if you're Nicolas von Baumhard. Listen to this story. Munich Re CEO von Baumhard has said he expects to be approached by AIG about possibly buying some of its Asian operations. He said, quote, AIG has a wonderful reputation as an underwriting company, and the problems didn't come from that corner. He was being interviewed on Bloomberg TV. He said, since we have a strategy in place where we want to develop our business in Eastern Europe and Asia, and if assets in this region or these regions come up, we'd be interested in looking at them. AIG CEO Edward Liddy is today expected to tell investors which companies AIG is planning to offload. Among them are expected to be AIG's Asian business, its airplane leasing company, and its 59% stake in reinsurer Transatlantic Re. HSBC, the bank, is also known to be interested in some of AIG's Asian assets. Von Baumhard said that the companies are not yet in talks, but he expects Munich Re to be approached, he said. He added that on the primary side, AIG's retail and smaller commercial businesses could be attractive, while the reinsurance side is more interested in the larger scale business. Mr. von Baumhard added that Munich Re was, quote, very well capitalized. He went on to say, that's why we feel that the crisis will not hinder us. Instead, since we got through it well, we consider it an interesting opportunity. Mr. von Baumhard, from your lips to God's ears, I hope the crisis is over, although I think you'd be the only one sharing that opinion. Greenlight Capital Re, the reinsurance arm of hedge fund Greenlight Capital, based in the Cayman Islands, warned that it expects a net loss for the third quarter of up to $3.45 a share. Why? Well, this is interesting. See if you can find it. The company was hammered by poor investment performance. Their investment return for the month of September was down 11.5%, so for the year now it's down about 13%. But Greenlight went on to say it does not have any material exposure to securities issued by AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Lehman Brothers, Wachovia, or Washington Mutual. It then also said it does not expect to be materially affected by Hurricanes Gustav and Ike. It did say, due to the relatively soft reinsurance market conditions, we still have significant amount of capacity. So that's an interesting story. I guess the losses just came from their general investments in the overall indexes. Here is a very ominous story. This was buried. We just noticed it before it came on the air. It qualifies for the lead story, but we slotted it into this spot. MBIA's insurance unit has sued several units of Countrywide Financial, claiming that Countrywide made fraudulent representations about its loan underwriting standards in connection with the securitization of pools of more than $14 billion in home equity loans. MBIA said in a breach of contract lawsuit filed in New York State Supreme Court on Tuesday of this week that Countrywide had developed a, quote, systematic pattern and practice of abandoning its own guidelines for loan origination. This all in a bid to expand its market share during the mortgage lending boom. According to MBIA, this behavior fundamentally changed the risk profile of Countrywide's mortgage portfolio. MBIA said that it had provided billions of dollars in credit enhancements through guarantees of trust obligations on some classes of residential mortgage-backed securities based on Countrywide's representations. The complaint said, in short, Countrywide deliberately abandoned its own guidelines to drive up revenues from increasing origination fees, servicing fees, and securitization fees, no matter what the cost to borrowers, investors, or guarantors like MBIA was. As a result, MBIA said, it has already paid out more than $450 million in guarantees and is exposed to claims in excess of several $100 million more. The lawsuit was first mentioned in other published reports now is alleging fraud, negligent misrepresentation, and breach of contract. I don't know about you, but the Bank of America, who had purchased Countrywide for $2.5 billion in July, declined to comment. If you are writing or have written E&O insurance for anybody involved in the mortgage security game, this one is sending shivers down your spine. Back to more pedestrian matters, flash floods in the Algerian desert have killed at least 29 people and injured 84, according to Algerian state radio. The floods yesterday followed incessant rain in an area about 375 miles south of Algiers. The Interior Ministry is saying that about 600 homes have been destroyed. And this news comes in from Bermuda, from the Royal Gazette this morning. Overall tourism figures in Bermuda have dropped about 13% for the first 8 months of 2008 compared to the same period last year. The total number of visitors for the first 8 months was about 435,000 compared to about 499,000 last year. Figures revealed that the number of tourists flying to the island between January and August dropped about 7%. The cruise ship industry figures dropped about 18%. Some of the business people in Bermuda, if you've been down there on Front Street, you're familiar with the Irish Linen Shop. That manager, Jeremy Hartley, said the absence of the ships in the harbor is very noticeable. Having no ships here give the hotel tourists that visit town an uneasy feeling of the tourism industry and Bermuda's economic status. The government of Bermuda says that a new cruise ship terminal scheduled to accommodate 2 cruise ships is currently being built out at the dockyards and will open in April of next year. Here's an interesting story. Most people know who Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko is. He's the gentleman who was the recipient of dioxin poisoning during his presidential run a couple of years ago. He was on a state visit heading to the actually to the western city of Lviv yesterday. Actually, this was yesterday, actually. No, this was this morning. I take it back. Talk about breaking news. And he was flying on his presidential airplane, and his plane was forced to make an emergency landing back in Kiev about 20 minutes after takeoff. Upon landing, everybody landed safely. He had to abandon that plane, and he hopped on to another plane, which was the plane of the Prime Minister, this woman, Yulia Tymoshenko. Ms. Tymoshenko was scheduled on a state trip, but the president, I guess, appropriated her airplane and continued on to Lvov. Ms. Yushchenko showed up, let me make sure I have these Ukrainian names straight. Ms. Tymoshenko, the Prime Minister, showed up at the airport to find that her plane was missing because the president had, in fact, changed planes. This has all been now confirmed by Ukrainian television. President Yushchenko has been at loggerheads with Prime Minister Tymoshenko. President Yushchenko is very Western-oriented, and Ms. Tymoshenko is not. So Ms. Tymoshenko, who was heading on a state trip, was in a bit of a pickle and ended up having to board a small private plane to take her